This is a very interesting video. A little bit of context is needed here, as this is a clip from Mr. David's, I think, podcast or show, and somebody was having a small comment about Christopher Dring's article, and they said that these people writing these articles, they may be liable of waking the sleeping giant, basically a $3 trillion company who the FTC has basically lost to, and they've been third place in the so-called console platform market, and now have pretty much overtaken the publishing game, and without any of the ropes now and the so-called position of the other leaders, they have the potential to go in for more acquisitions. Nib95 comes out and gives some form of a, I don't know what it is, spill, pointing that certain fans have been making the same argument for decades, and it's like they never learn. I don't know how many decades this fandom's been going on for, Nib95, but whatever. You said Microsoft's always been a powerhouse. How's that worked out for Xbox? Or Zune? Band, Skype, Bing, Bob, Groove, Internet Explorer, Kin, Lumia Surface, Windows Phone, Mixer, etc. So all of the failures of Microsoft are on display here, and he said the reality is being a massive multi-trillion-dollar business doesn't prevent you from failures, mistakes, nor guarantee success in all areas. Nib95, tell us something we don't know. He said the reality is being a massive. It said that, and the sleeping giant woke up already. Hence, the slew of acquisitions, including ZeniMax and Activision Blizzard King, latter eclipsing anything else in gaming history. Then this is what he said. The issue is the giant also wants return on investment and margins, hence is now in the process of potentially transitioning Xbox to a multi-platform publisher strategy, has closed studios, had massive gaming layoffs, etc. So Nib95, if I'm correct, your premise here, let's write this stuff down, okay? A lot of times people say stuff, some of these things, and it's good that we can basically go ahead and keep stock of what it is that they're saying. N'est-ce pas? All right, let's go. So you're saying that their process of wanting investment has, one, transitioned them into a multi-plat publisher, right? Because they want ROI. So because ROI, let's do this. Because ROI, they have transitioned, according to you, actually, your words, in the process of transitioning into a multi-platform publisher. Two, you said have closed studios because of Roy, right? Has closed studios. And three, has had massive, and had massive layoffs. Okay, 3 massive layoffs. Got it. All right, let's keep reading. So he said fans might not necessarily like what they get when the said giant actually starts paying closer attention and being more stringent on ROI or growth. Credit to Jamie's ACT for clip. I don't know who the guy talking in the clip is, but I believe the main guy is King David, whom I remember for the hilarious "hold the line" statement, aka maintain your lower standards. Got it. All right, since we now have the premise here, which is talking about the sleeping giant's ROI, return on investment, being the primary goal, I have to say, number one, the acquisition of Activision Blizzard King is and was at the time a cash acquisition, right? And Activision Blizzard King in this position is an asset because it's kind of a self-generating, how do I put it? It's a income-generating entity. Basically, they have their investment costs. They had money in the bank. They already make their games that are coming out every year, that are bringing in money every year. And Microsoft's $69 billion that they spent has already made more money based on the more recent valuation of Activision Blizzard King. Hence, they have already realized a significant return. This is business 101, people. Return. I don't care about, I really don't care about Xbox, but I like this business stuff. They've already made they've realized a significant return based on that valuation or new valuation of Activision Blizzard King. So that's one. ZeniMax, Bethesda in the same boat as well. Because as many people may say, oh, they were looking at almost getting out of business and blah, 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 they're still a income generating entity in terms of managing them, maybe cutting off some areas that may need better and closer look, which affects developers like the studios that he mentioned being closed, Tango Gameworks being one of them. You can already see, and Arcane Austin, you can already see that they went in with ZeniMax, and that's probably what they did, as those studios, especially in the case of Tango, were not necessarily generating income. And for Tango, they actually divested of that studio and sold it off to Krafton, who was taking them on. But now it brings us to point number 2, has closed studios. Now here's the crazy thing. Xbox is not the only one who closed studios, right? There are other publishers and platform holders and entities who have also closed studios. But Nib95, you did not necessarily take into account that this could be pointed out if you went with that premise, and you did not talk about the other guys who have closed way more studios than these guys, even without a significant cash investment. I wonder what that company's name is called. And they also had mass layoffs because, we're going to point it out here, their development costs were pretty much astronomical. Okay? They were astronomical. An Upset Insomniac says, PlayStation layoffs are unprecedented, February 29, 2024. When the reality was that when PlayStation's documents leaked, do you remember the Insomniac leaks? Right? PlayStation was actually pressuring its own developers and studios to lay off staff because of the development costs rising. So somewhere, somehow, it's ROI for Xbox as a giant, but for PlayStation, it goes unmentioned as the industry is suffering from its own bloat overall. Everyone with no exceptions. Do you all see the sleight of hand being played here? And that's just point number 2, of which, if we assess the number of studios that PlayStation closed, while basically having made what I think are in some cases fugazi investments, like spending all that money for Firewalk and then closing Neon Koi on top of Firewalk, we'll start to see what I think is much more mismanagement, while Xbox, and this goes back to point number 1, let's backtrack and let's destroy that nonsense that Nib95 is putting out here, right? Where Xbox stayed multi-platform all the way back in 2016 and was sustainable and kept its studios open before even acquiring Activision Blizzard King or Bethesda Game Studios. This is judged and this is collated by the reality that Xbox's games from Xbox Game Studios were in the top grossing games on Steam for multiple years. Such games as Forza Horizon 4 and 5. In some cases, the Gears games made their way into these lists on Steam. Games like Sea of Thieves were there. And other games that maintained a sustainable path for bringing in revenue, such as Grounded, and so on and so forth, were also there, being in a position where they could keep the studios sustainable. Then you had even a studio that was in the visual arts, Ninja Theory, also doing services and keeping themselves busy and making, and earning income to keep their studio firing. Then 343 as well, whom did the Halo games, even though their game was received with a lot of mixed reactions, were still making money. Nib95. You know Xbox's business strategy. You know their business makeup. This is not something I should be telling you. For somebody who's been in the conversation for a long time, you really have to get past this so-called bias and be able to point it out the way that it actually is. Does that make sense? Like, I don't care for Xbox. I don't care for the console. Their business, strategy and what they have as a unique, I would say unique offering that really is attractive to gamers who are conscious of their pocket is strong. I don't deny that, won't deny that. Even though I'm not a fan of them selling me a 4K 120 FPS console that doesn't do 4K 120 FPS on anything that's bigger than Tetris, I can still admit to tell you that they have a sound business strategy and they know what it is that they're doing. And that's just number 2 in the claims that you made. Then you made the third one and you said massive layoffs. Now, this is something that I do not play with. Don't like them. Don't like them. But do you mean to tell me that the layoffs that we've been seeing across PlayStation, right, in terms of just the business not rolling in the way they would love for it to roll compared to Xbox, having had a merger and basically is doing away with redundancy being one of their biggest, are you saying that that is as a result of them needing ROI from an asset that they bought with cash that is generating its own revenue? While at the same time, they're seeing their margins also increase independent of these particular things, while they've stayed sustainable even through the toughest of times when their consoles weren't selling. I don't think you were interested in actually telling this user that called into King David's show the error of them thinking that this so-called sleeping giant, was some kind of an impermeable force. Nobody ever said that. Nobody ever claimed that. There are always all kinds of nonsense that goes on in every corporation and expensive mistakes. However, for you to insinuate that a company that has been multi-plat for years wants ROI, hence they've entered that strategy, is just a lie. It's just a lie, a big, big lie. It's a fat lie that I can sing it with confidence because right in front of me, I'm literally seeing evidence contrary to that point. And again, people continue to make the point thinking that we're just going to just gloss over it. No. The data, the history, the reality is right here. You can castigate Microsoft and Xbox for anything else, right? You can throw it out there and make it a big deal. But these right here, it can't fly. Where would it fly? Like, where would you sell this and anybody would buy it? Even the so-called PlayStation fan base are now starting to see that, okay, it seems like this strategy is quite sound because it's working. You know why it's working? Because it's actually been proof tested almost a decade ago. Them bringing their games to PlayStation doesn't make you on PlayStation special. You're just the next subject to make them money. Why? They took their games to Steam. Of all places that you could take your games and come out on top, Steam? Oh, it's on. What they're going to do is they're going to pretty much fill the bucket of of PlayStation's ecosystem with so many Xbox games, you're not going to recognize if you're actually playing on a PlayStation anymore. You're going to turn around every year annually, and one game you buy is going to have Xbox Game Studios opening up that game every single year. That's what they want to do. If you think that this is some ROI play, keep thinking it, okay? They're probably fine with you thinking that. But I don't think PlayStation is thinking that. I think PlayStation is thinking to themselves, man, what the heck are we going to do? How are we going to deal with this? And PlayStation cannot stop a publisher that they've already approved from launching their games when those publishers meet all their requirements, of which Microsoft spends millions of dollars that those requirements be met. You will play these PlayStation games. You and your buds don't want to buy our console? That's what y'all are saying? You don't want to buy this console? We marked it down. We sold you a Series S. That was way better than the Nintendo Switch 2 of next month. You will buy our games, though. Oh, and they're buying it. Ooh, they're being bought like crazy. And guys, and it's just May. The multiplat strategy has already been proof tested. This is now the full iteration of the build. You know what I mean? And man, business has got to be, and this is how you analyze business, by just looking at the moves in a big, in a big picture mode. If you do vacuum style stuff, tunnel vision stuff, you're gonna miss out what the reality is. See, PlayStation fanboys, those of you that are laughing at Xbox, you're laughing, but it ain't funny. I mean, it ain't funny anyways in that side, but I guess the Xbox fans, I can hear them laughing, saying, "What do you mean, VG? It's funny." And I'm like, guys, hey, I'm trying to work here. You're distracting me, okay? Because I noticed that the thing that really does foment this so-called bickering back and forth is not necessarily always the truth. It's always some kind of agenda somewhere. But thank God that, we have all of this laid bare in front of us. Mr. Nib95, don't join these gaming journalists in spreading these falsehoods. Say the truth. I'm out.